All right. Hello, everyone. Not too sure where everyone is based, so just a big hello and welcome from our friends here at Hostfully, as well as our guest of honor. We have Arthur Kolker here and Troy Ibarra from StayFi, and then a longtime Hostfully user, Michael Springer, who's the owner of Book NOLA, as well as Marcos, who's my right-hand man for these webinars, is our business development manager. So we will be starting shortly, but usually while we wait, I also like to just get a better understanding of who you are and what we should really focus on today's webinar. So on the bottom right of your screen, you're going to find a questions tab. Use that as an opportunity to ask any question that you have throughout the next hour. Take advantage of the professionals on this call and just ask any questions you like. You'll also notice some pop-up polls throughout today's webinar as well. So it'll be great if you could participate in those polls and provide some intel and knowledge for us. Again, we're just waiting for a few more people to trickle in, so we'll give it a few more minutes. But while we kill some time, I thought we'd give the polls a chance. So while we're waiting, we're going to have a fun little practice poll here. And there. So which type of webinar participant are you today? Are you the expert, the curious newbie, the tech enthusiast, or the problem solver? You think, being in software, I'm the tech enthusiast, but I'm the furthest from that. So I will go to the problem solver. So submit that vote, and that's kind of how the polls work. So far, 50% are the problem solvers, 40% are curious newbies, 10% are experts, and there's only 8% that are tech enthusiasts. So that's kind of nifty. Didn't expect that. But yeah, just answer those questions, and that's how the polls will work. We don't have too many, but they'll just pop up throughout the webinar to keep us all engaged and interactive. So it does seem that we can get started. I see lots of people are flying in right now. So again, once more, before we do so, just wanted to quickly point out our questions tab on the bottom right. So if you do have any questions throughout today's webinar, we, of course, will make every effort to get those answered for you, as well as the end, should we have time for Q&A. Again, if time allows. But also in an effort to get a better understanding of who you are and what we should really focus on. If you're just tuning in, we're going to notice some pop-up polls throughout today's webinar. So if you could participate in those polls and provide some information for us, that'll be much appreciated. But also, don't forget the emoji reactions. Those are fun. Let's make it fun. If you hear, something you like, select the emoji reaction. If you find something interesting, go ahead and use the surprised emoji or the laugh emoji, because I couldn't pronounce interesting. But without further ado, again, thanks for everyone for joining us. My name is Frank Bosi. I am the Senior Director of Partner Development here at Hostfully. Behind the scenes, answering questions and helping us out today is Marcos, our business development rep. But last but certainly not least, today we are going to be joined by the fantastic gentleman of StayFi. We have Arthur Kolker, who's the CEO, and Troy Ibarra, who's the Director of Marketing, as well as the man himself, Michael Springer, who's the owner of Book NOLA. Gents, thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. We're really excited to have you on today to share your knowledge and your insights on today's webinar. And Michael, we can't wait to hear about your experience using both Hostfully and StayFi, and how both softwares really assisted you in capturing guest data, but also ultimately converting guests. So before we jump into the discussion, I just wanted to let you know, these are our pictures. There you go. But jumping in, just wanted to let you know a little bit more about Hostfully. What we do is we are a vacation rental property management company that helps you run your business from tip to tail. We essentially strive to help vacation rental companies and property managers make more money, increase revenue, streamline and automate your day-to-day operations, while at the same time we're improving the overall traveler experience. Now, Hostfully has two platforms. As you can see, these are both completely standalone platforms. You have the property management platform, and then you also have the digital guidebook. They're both fully integrated, so you're, of course, more than welcome to use both of them together, but you also have the option to use just the property management software or just the digital guidebook. So we do have the property management software right over here. And on the property management side, we have direct integrations with major OTAs, Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, Homes and Villas by Marriott Bonvoy, Google Vacations, along with a bunch of others, aside from your direct booking channel. So Hostfully will be your central software and hub, really, in managing all of your reservations. We have a great pipeline feature. It's unique to the industry. We have really nice out-of-the-box direct booking site that's available to all of our users, whether you have one listing or 1,000 listings. But also included in our software are automated messages, both email, text messages, and WhatsApp. You have reports, analytics, payment processors. We have a wonderful new unified inbox and multi-unit function. So really a lot to offer there. And just to mention and boast a little bit, we are also winning awards. We won the best vacation rental software, and then the best property management software to grow with specifically. So making us back-to-back winners at the Shorties Awards. In addition to the property management software, we do also have our beautiful guidebooks. This is a unique platform where we focus on enhancing the guest experience. We make it easy to share important information to your guest about their trip. So check-in details, dates, directions, house manual. Again, this aims in boosting guest experience. It cuts down on communications, but it also has the ability to get you more 5-star reviews. And it's really cool how you can work the digital guidebooks along with StayFi and the software. And the same thing on the guidebook side. Craig is a great user of ours, and he stated that the guidebook provides a guest experience for thousands of guests. It saves hours on time, increases guest experience, and it's really easy to use, and it's mobile responsive. So if you haven't tested out the guidebooks yet, we have free trials for all guidebook subscriptions, and we also have one free guidebook for everyone who wants to kick the tires and test it out. Not only do we have these cool features and capabilities, but we also have great learning opportunities and resources. We have reports and webinars, Hostfully University. We have a variety of resources and reports available on our website, which I encourage you all to check out at your leisure. And we have a ton to offer you there, along with blog posts, case studies, and articles. So if you do want any information on any of our products, please feel free to reach out to me directly or to Marcos directly, or even better, place a note in the questions tab if you'd like a one-on-one demo. We're always happy to coordinate and schedule a meeting with you. But that's enough about me. Now, the real reason that y'all are here, I'm sure, is to chat with StayFi and with Michael from Book NOLA. So again, I'm going to hand it over to you guys. So any questions, polls, anything you want, let it know. We're going to have Michael and Arthur take it out from here. Thank you, gentlemen.
Awesome. Thank you, Frank. Yeah, so today we have a lot to discuss, and I'm really excited to be joined by Michael from Book NOLA, who is a longtime StayFi customer. And the agenda is all going to be about not only how do you collect more guest data, how do you turn that data into more bookings and more revenue for your business. So we're going to go over a few topics, quick intro, a little background on why you should collect guest data, why it matters, then a little bit on direct bookings, how that can benefit your business. We'll get Michael's insight from his own experience. And then we'll go through the foundations of actually how to build a brand and drive more bookings. So that's going to be website, data collection, and then marketing to your guests. Talk a little about case studies, and then hopefully still have some time for a Q&A. So plenty to get through during the session, and really excited to share with you guys. Just a little background on StayFi, kind of what are the services that we offer as a business. So what StayFi started as and what we're most known for is our guest data collection capability. And we were the first company to bring to this industry collecting guest data through the Wi-Fi. So an experience very similar to what you've seen at a hotel, coffee shop, airport. Every single guest, not just the booker, when they join the Wi-Fi, has to submit their information to get online. And that way we're collecting data from everyone. Now, since we launched that, we've added additional features. Those include adding additional data from other sources. So for instance, from Hostfully We'll also pull in any actionable data. And now within StayFi, we also have the marketing tools you need. So in the past, you may have used a MailChimp or other email tool. Now you can all do all of that marketing within StayFi as well. And I'll show you a little bit about how you can take those tools and turn them into emails that actually drive bookings later on in the presentation. And then we have some other features we'll touch on which help you engage guests, drive more revenue through upsells. And then, of course, because we're a Wi-Fi tool, we also have some cool Wi-Fi monitoring capabilities, things like outages and occupancy. So just a little bit more on StayFi. To date, we've collected now almost 4 million guest emails across all 60,000 plus properties that use our service, which is kind of crazy that, mostly in the US, we've educated millions of adults about the power of booking direct. And so hopefully, even if you're not a StayFi user, you're still benefiting because we're educating folks about how to book directly with vacation rental companies so they can come and find yours. Now I'll hand it over to Mike just to give a little background on Book NOLA, how he gets started, as I know he has a pretty interesting path to how he got to build his property management business.
Yes, thank you, Arthur. Thank you, Frank. Excited to be here, guys. So again, I'm Mike Springer. I'm the owner of Book NOLA down here in New Orleans. We focus on providing our guests unique New Orleans experiences by immersing them in the culture here in New Orleans. We're actually just in the middle of Mardi Gras here, so all of that fun going on. But as you can see on the screen, there's some details about our management company here. We're actually at 57 properties as of today. So, but yeah, thanks to StayFi and Hostfully for sure. We have improved our direct bookings by over 10x in the past about 2.5 years. So proud to say, of those almost 4 million emails Arthur stated that StayFi's collected, we've got over 18,000 there. And an even longer user of Hostfully. Been with Hostfully, Frank, I think longer than you, man, since 2019. So
Yep.
Going on 6 years.
I wish I could say I brought you on board, but
all right. And they've got some information on some other email marketing that we use. Quibble in that email marketing 24/7, 365 are some lesser known players, but definitely important for us. But one of the things that I don't think is going to be in these slides is how important the direct booking strategy and these email marketing strategies are to our owner acquisition. We make that a huge focus of our owner acquisition, so really excited to share that with you guys today.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know you have a little more history here, but I definitely talking about that owner acquisition piece. I think we can definitely touch upon that later when we get into the email marketing piece, because I'm sure part of your growth has been how do you differentiate from other folks in your market, because New Orleans is pretty competitive from a property management standpoint.
Absolutely. And so getting into my background actually also flows into that as well. But as you can see, I began co-hosting while I was in law school. Shout out to my now wife, who's actually on here as watching the call with us as well, for letting me move in with her in 2016 so that I could put my mom's studio apartment in her garage on Airbnb. And that's quickly turned into managing 10 units by the time I graduated law school in May of 2018. So it was be a junior associate at a law firm working 80 hours a week, or have fun and make money while doing it. So easy choice. So as soon as I took my last law school exam, actually, I went out and found the LLC and set to work on client acquisitions. So at the time, the market was a little less regulated, so we pretty quickly got to over 30 units managing, which, we were using spreadsheets originally, as I'm sure a lot of you operators out there are familiar with, those growing pains. And thankfully, actually was able to connect with Hostfully in 2019 there, got onboarded there and have never considered a change, but they've definitely been an integral part of our operations here. As Frank mentioned earlier, they're kind of the central hub of our top software and technology and daily operations. But right when COVID hit, we were kind of in the middle of investing in more of our brand, that Book NOLA brand. The pillow right there is in each of our units here. But that kind of steep pullback in tourism that we all experienced during that time, and Airbnb, I don't know if I can call them out, guys, but Airbnb kind of, let's see, not paying us out, not honoring the cancellation policy that they and those guests agreed to, then really helped us understand the significance of investing in our brand and building out our direct booking website. And so we made a point to ensure that now our guests encounter our brand, our logo, throughout their guest stay, whether that's in the Hostfully guidebooks, whether that's in their branded StayFi, Wi-Fi connection, or their throw pillows or coffee mugs. We have it all throughout the unit. We text guests after they depart to make sure they know, hey, don't forget next time you come, you can save on those OTA fees by booking direct.
No, it's awesome, because it takes 7 to 10 times for someone to see your brand and remember it. So I really love that you're not just relying on one tool or tactic. You're approaching the branding from so many multiple ways, just to make sure when a guest is in that trip planning mode to come back to New Orleans, or maybe they're referring someone else who's planning a trip there, that they remember to go to your website, and that's so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think this will be a good time to also kind of get a sense of how everyone is currently collecting their guest emails. So I'm curious to see how everyone is doing it, if it's through your property management software, pre-arrival forms, maybe it's through StayFi or branded Wi-Fi. So any way that you can share that'll be super helpful. And a lot are coming in, about 70% now are showing pre-arrival forms. So that's pretty nifty. But your direct booking site option is 0%. So a lot to go off on that one.
Yeah, and in this presentation, we're going to talk about how to collect data every single way, because from our standpoint, StayFi offers multiple tools, but there's other great tools out there, and we really want to help people bring all that data into one place to do effective marketing. So we commonly see people collect data 3, 4, 5 different places, and it all feeds into a marketing strategy. But definitely pre-arrival forms, that is the lightest, easiest lift. It's probably because you have one in Hostfully, right? Is what people are leveraging here, right?
The pre-arrival forms? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sweet. So yeah, that's all. So definitely talk about how to take advantage of that. So this is just kind of like now we're going to dive into a little bit more meat of the presentation. So this is kind of the steps we're going to go through is, what's the process by which you can go about improving your direct booking game. And I think it's important to remember that direct booking as a channel is not just about cannibalizing or substituting an OTA booking for direct booking, which is obviously advantageous to you, but it's also about how do we increase our overall bookings by booking, what otherwise would have been unbooked nights, or nights that you would have had to lower your rate through a dynamic pricing tool as those dates approached. So that's really about building that resilient direct channel. Is this going to reduce your dependence on OTAs? Mike talked about the Airbnb incident back in 2020. But whenever you're dependent on third parties for a majority of your bookings, there's always going to be that risk involved of what if they change their policies, their algorithms, what if there's more competition, what if there's less demand. There's just so much you don't control when you're dependent on those channels. So just moving forward, why collect information from guests? So obviously OTA reliance, we talked about, we haven't talked yet about the fees, right? So obviously whenever you acquire a guest through an OTA, you're paying some type of fee to that OTA, usually around 15% of the booking value. So it's just important to remember that OTAs are great places to acquire guests for the first time, but you definitely don't want to pay for those guests to come back again through the OTA. Mike talked a little bit about the dangers of being dependent on third-party channels in terms of their rules. Then also, when you're dependent on OTAs, you have access to less data. So maybe you have the pre-arrival form, but unless if you mandate guests fill that out or they have to go through some check-in process, it can be hard to access that data, especially from Airbnb bookings. And then, of course, if your market changes, algorithms change, you're a little bit dependent on what OTAs are producing for you. Direct bookings, there's a lot of great benefits. Obviously, you can build up a roster of folks that are coming back direct in again. You can have more profitable bookings. And then finally, you have more ability to drive reviews. I'm just curious, Mike, was there anything else that you felt like made you, outside of the 2020 experience, made you want to pursue kind of building up your brand? Any other rationale behind that maybe isn't here?
More personal than anything that might apply, but I mean, anything that I'm going to set out to do, I'm going to be the best at, and this is the natural next step in the evolution of any property management company in the vacation rental space, right? Otherwise, you're really just like an Uber driver, but Airbnb also kind of owns your car, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, wanting to be successful, kind of a lot of the problems you pointed out, right? Like filling those vacant days, owning our guest data, as we'll get into later, being able to utilize those emails and effectively marketing to fill vacant dates or to market to like Mardi Gras. One of the things we do every year is we look at all of our guests who stayed for Mardi Gras in years past, and about 2 or 3 weeks beforehand, we will email blast those specific guests. To get them to fill in the gaps on our Mardi Gras calendar if there are any at that point. So,
and then you mentioned owner acquisition. So I'm curious, is it typically guests that stayed with you? Do they like want to purchase a property in New Orleans and you manage it for them? Or is it more when you go to market to an owner of a building or a property that you say, hey, we're bringing this brand to market your home, so we're going to do better than somebody who's just, operating on OTAs?
right. That is a great question. It's actually both. So none of our local competitors, so, not counting like national brands, but none of our local competitors in the vacation rental management space here in New Orleans have a direct booking website. So that makes it easy for us to go to them, especially after a down year where they're like, oh yeah, we didn't perform as well. Oh, well, I see your manager doesn't have a direct booking website. And then being able to educate them on the value of that, the value of owning your guest data, the value of being able to drive repeat bookings because of our direct booking website, because of our brand, and because of the brand recognition that we've obtained with these guests over the years. But at the same time, I'm actually in the middle of developing a boutique hotel here in New Orleans with one of my clients who I first met because they stayed in my mom's studio garage.
So your first property back in the day.
Yes.
Full circle. Look at that.
Full circle. Absolutely. So both, right? Turning guests into owners and clients, but also marketing to current owners in the city who are self-managing or with another management company.
No, I think that's so fantastic, and I know a lot of StayFi users include StayFi in some type of presentation of, we're going to go above and beyond what a quote unquote like Airbnb management company is going to do for you. And I think it's really important, like Mike said, to kind of understand who your competitors are in your space if you are a property manager in your market, because that can just give you that extra edge, right? Especially if folks have been struggling with bookings this year. It's kind of what are you bringing extra to the table, which I think is so fantastic. Yep. So we talked a little bit about this. Why do direct bookings matter? Obviously, having a great website, which is what we'll talk about next, is kind of like the entry point into building your brand, because people need a place to come and like understand who you are as a business, and then obviously to make a booking and actually go through. And then there's other great advantages to having that digital presence. Something that we've noticed a lot right now with operators is guests discovering them on an OTA and then going in and Googling the name of the property and finding the website. So there's just all this virtuous cycle of having a great branded website that's going to drive traffic from multiple sources. And then one thing to consider when picking your PMS like Hostfully is that they have the capability to launch a direct booking website to start with. And I think one thing that speaks really highly of Hostfully is that Mike has been using them since the beginning of starting his business. I can tell you from working with lots of property managers that is usually not the case. They definitely have not been with one software through their whole journey and have often switched multiple times as their platform grows. So kind of just curious, Mike, if you want to just share a little bit more about how you found Hostfully and kind of how it's grown with you over time, because I'm sure it's also changed a lot since you started with them.
Absolutely. At the time, my biggest problem was creating invoices for owners. And again, this is back in 2019. So I was manually doing that spreadsheet, like manual invoicing software every month. And at the time, the sales rep that I spoke to at Hostfully incorrectly told me that they had that capability. So I was like, I'm sold. That's it. Let's go. Get on.
Reminder, it wasn't me. I didn't even join the company yet.
They're no longer with the company, so we're good there. But I was sold on that, got set up, was definitely disappointed that was not the case, but I'm still here, obviously, just because they provided the great foundation for everything that we needed to do. Yes, Hostfully is a hub for connecting to external softwares like StayFi or pricing tools, things like that, lock automation, etc. But Hostfully's core product, the master calendar, the owner portal, automated messaging, all of that stuff. Originally we were using the pre-arrival form. Going back to the that last poll question, that's where we were getting a lot of our guest data. But since 2019, I'm sure like more than half of the current channel partners or integration partners that Hostfully has now have come online, right? And another one that I forgot to mention is just that channel manager aspect of Hostfully, like Frank pointed out earlier, not just having a seamless connection with Airbnb, but also being, like I think it's a preferred partner with Vrbo. Correct me if I'm wrong, Frank, there. Yes, absolutely. Yep. Booking.com, which is a pain in the butt to deal with. Hostfully has made that very easy for myself and our team. Homes and Villas, Marriott International, but even when you need that extra distribution, they have partners like Rentals United and things like that to really get you to hundreds and hundreds of platforms out there. But as we continue to grow, we started looking at things like dynamic pricing software, smart lock automation, smart home automation. And as Hostfully's very, very long list of integration zone partners will show, there are lots and lots and lots of options. Even with now the world of AI and messaging and stuff, Hostfully rolled out that AI response in the unified inbox. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So actually actually put a bug in President of Hostfully, David Jacoby's ear, to improve that AI. So now we can create like invisible cards in the Hostfully guidebooks and have all of this information that is invisible to guests that the AI will be able to take information from. It's really saved our team a lot of time and improved our response time to our guests. So again, every step of the way, I've had nothing but a great experience with Hostfully because in my experience, they've taken every bit of feedback I've ever offered, whether it was nice, great conversation over coffee with David and those hidden cards, or like a very upset email about this problem just happened, and them responding quickly and making sure it never happened again. So it's not just Hostfully is at the forefront of the short-term rental industry and constantly looking for new ways to improve their product. But they're actively seeking and listening to client feedback, to the real property managers, and taking that feedback and implementing it. I forget the statistic, Frank, maybe you can help me out, but like a massive amount of Hostfully employees actually run their own vacation rental as well, right?
Yep. Yeah, I don't know the exact number, and I wish I could say as a prerequisite. I've been trying to get David Jacoby to give each of us at least one property, so we know what we're talking about. But that hasn't. Maybe Michael, you should.
Look, I'm gonna grab my wife Kayla, and we're gonna get on a call with you and David, and we'll talk about all these short-term rentals available.
Break a property. Yeah.
Yeah. But
no, I appreciate all the kind words too, and even like just attesting to what you said earlier was, you joined when we only have like a quarter of the features and capabilities we have now. So I think that's what really sets us apart from others, is we just absorb everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, and we make it work for our clients. Some take longer. I mean, we finally have multi-unit, and that took years, but we got it. It's all contingent on the conversations that we have, but not even that, but even like with partners, like just in an effort to have a seamless integration with StayFi, there is a lot that happens behind the scenes, conversations, API connections, all that fun stuff. But allowing and just hearing out what works and what doesn't work. So it's all a team effort, really, when it comes down to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, speaking of the integration, and we actually have some special integration items with Hostfully that are pretty unique. So just a little bit of background on how that works. And it's kind of the first and easiest point to start collecting data, is helping you take data out of Hostfully and use it for marketing purposes. So when it comes to StayFi, when you create an account, you will import your properties. One feature that we have is dynamic occupancy alerting. So we're always comparing the number of folks in your property versus the number that are currently booked in Hostfully. And we count not just devices, but unique users. So we will let you know if there are more users than are currently booked in the property. And then I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but basically when you connect Hostfully, not only do we import all the data you've collected there historically into our email marketing tool. So if you have real emails in Hostfully, like you've collected through a pre-arrival form, we will grab that. But we also will add any emails real time that get added there. And then we add it with all the details about their reservation. So you'll know where they stayed last, where they'll stay next, and all those fields will move around. So it's the easiest and best place to start when it comes to starting to assemble the data that you have on your guests. And then finally, we can also help collect data through our own pre-arrival messaging tool, which is complementary to what Hostfully has already. And then you can also collect data that way as well. So step one is building your website. And then obviously Mike has gone above and beyond what's probably available as a starter website, which in Hostfully, which is always a great place to start. So I'd love to learn more from you, Mike, kind of who built your website today, and kind of what was your process in getting to this point. And I definitely recommend anyone check out the Book NOLA website when they have a chance after, just to see what Mike's done here.
You're on mute, Mike. Oh, nope, still on mute. You got it. There you go.
There we go. Boom. Shout out to a fellow New Orleanian, actually, Ellie over at Hudson Creative Studio, which another integration with Hostfully. He and his team actually built out this phenomenal website. And they, just like Hostfully, are continuing to roll out new features. As you can see in that screenshot there, one of my favorite new things, search with AI. So you can throw in things like, hey, coming with kids, want to see the parades, want to be in a nice safe area, and they'll, spit out some options for your dates. But yeah, so and Ellie has been a phenomenal partner. Again, he's always rolling out new features with what's it called, Home Runner, which is their software that they use for the booking engine. But yeah, that and Hostfully have made this really, really awesome booking experience for our website. And one thing that we focused on there with that experience is just um, the ease of use and the intuitiveness for the guests, being able to see the final price. One of my favorite features that we'll talk about a little bit more as well is our price comparison tool. So as soon as guests enter their dates and see a confirmed price, a little widget will pop up right below that and say, look at how much you're saving. It's this much more in Airbnb, on Vrbo, on Booking.com, to really emphasize and drive home the point that they're getting added value by booking directly with us, right, to save on those OTA fees.
Mike, just sorry,
Sure.
just one question here. At what point would you, from your experience, would you recommend a property manager go from using kind of the out of the box booking engine like from Hostfully to where it's worthwhile to make an investment in a website like this? Kind of, how do you measure that trade-off and when you should kind of upgrade?
Absolutely. I guess it's definitely going to be different from everyone, for everyone. But one thing I always did, so since like that COVID time where I was like, okay, I'm going to do this Book NOLA thing, I've always set a marketing budget. No matter how small the company was, no matter how slim the margins were, was constantly investing in trickling funds into that marketing budget, into the brand. We have some guests from early 2020 that are still repeat guests, but at the time it was a really, really big investment to kind of have a complete website done. Right now, one of the cool things about Hostfully is obviously that you sign up, you get your properties on board, and there's kind of this out of the box website. So that, if you're going to be paying for a property management platform, that's best case scenario when you're on a limited budget and kind of a small growing property management company. We got really serious when we were around 35 properties. But one thing about the New Orleans market that I find is very different from some other markets. There aren't a lot of properties here that are going to get $1,000, $2,000+ a night, like maybe your Florida markets or some of your super seasonal markets. So there wasn't always a huge marketing budget. So the trickle thing that I was doing, we're kind of making sure, forcing the company to have a marketing budget really helped. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Of course, it really depends on the company. It's definitely, I would say, like top 5 most important things, once you get to that 35 properties, right? It's something that's definitely what you want to make some progress on for sure.
And is this where you get inquiries for property management as well? Is it the same website for both?
Yes and no. So Book NOLA is actually a trade name. So like a DBA, doing business as. The name of the company is NOLA Short-Term Rental Solutions. So we do have a landing page. If you go on booknola.com right now, at the top there is like an owner services, and it'll drop down into hotel management and like vacation rental management. But we, against the advice of others, I've tried to keep our Book NOLA brand, our guest-facing brand, so to speak, to where like our guests will never hear of NOLA Short-Term Rental Solutions or anything like that. And that NOLA Short-Term Rental Solutions are client-facing brand.
Yeah, I mean, I see people do it both ways. There's definitely advantages and disadvantages to each one. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely encourage people to go check out the website. And then Hudson Creative Group, I'm sure you can see it there. They're definitely one of the most popular website creators for Hostfully clients, and they do a fantastic job. So definitely check them out if you haven't already. Now we'll kind of, assuming you have a website, whether it's the Hostfully website, starting out something basic or more sophisticated with a website like from Hudson. The next thing you want to do as an operator is collect as much data you can from multiple different places, because this is what's going to drive the success of your email marketing. And the returns from email marketing compound, right? So as your list grows, the relative increase in cost to email, 5,000 people versus 10,000 people versus 15,000 people is not that much. But you're going to get, 2-3x times your investment as that list grows. So number one, which we'll talk about a little bit, is Wi-Fi. And this is the fastest way to collect the most data, just because you collect data from every single person. Pre-arrival guest data. We have a form that does that. I know Hostfully has a form that does that. That's a great way to collect the data from the booker, especially if they're booking through an OTA where that data is not available to you. And that's, a super important thing to do, just so that you're at least getting that one email per stay. The third is reservation data, which I talked about earlier. And then finally, the other one is from your website. So if you have a fantastic website like Book NOLA, you want to make sure you have a pop-up or a form to collect data there. And that's something that StayFi can also do for you to make sure you're collecting any data from folks that are coming to your website and are looking to book in the future. Here's just a quick view of what the Wi-Fi process looks like. So first, when the guest comes to your property, they will select the Wi-Fi network. Then this splash page, which is customized, obviously, to your brand and even down to the property, will pop up. Guests will put name, email, phone number if you'd like to collect it, as long as opt into your marketing. And once the guest does that, they're good for the rest of the stay. So it's just one time per device over the course of the stay. Once the guest hits connect, we actually have a second page that you create in StayFi called the home page. The home page you can think of as like a link tree for your listing. So you can have a link to your guidebook, like a Hostfully guidebook, a link to book this property again, a link to upsells. Basically, you're taking every single guest, not just the booker, to this destination so that they can access all the information about this property. And then finally, that homepage is available as a standalone website. So if you'd like, you can text or email a link to that page to your guest through StayFi as well, right after they log into the Wi-Fi. I know this is an example of Mike's homepage for one of his properties. So kind of just curious, kind of how did you approach branding on the splash page? And I know the homepage came out later. So kind of how have you leveraged this feature to make sure that guests are getting this important information after they log in?
Absolutely. And shout out to the StayFi team, because as you mentioned, it kind of came out last year. And, with 55 units, it was a lot to do. And the StayFi team came in clutch, so helping us. Let's do that. But so as you can see from that example, like Arthur said, highlighting that guidebook, with the Wi-Fi, et cetera, in there, making that book again front and center. And at the bottom, having some of our most popular upsells and tours right there. So really what we did was look at our highest touch points for our guests, on our website or the guidebook or the upsells, and kind of highlighted those to further increase conversion for those things. While also putting the most important things, those guidebooks, at our guests' fingertips.
And then what service for, I see mid-stay housekeeping or late checkout, what tool do you use to kind of facilitate those purchases?
Hostfully guidebooks, man.
Okay, so it all goes back into the Hostfully guidebook.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, so if you use StayFi or are interested, you can create custom buttons on this homepage, which is, again, where all your guests are being taken after they log in. If there's certain upsells, tours, I think, is this a Viator affiliate link for tours and things to do, or does that go back to the Hostfully guidebook as well?
So that's a Viator one, yeah. But again, born out of the Hostfully's setup with Viator, that's built into the guidebook as well. And we've just kind of extrapolated that relationship with Viator into our website as well. So,
yeah, I mean, that's what's great about the Viator affiliate program is you can then feature those tours and activities here on the homepage, in your guidebook, on your website, and they pay 8% out on anyone that clicks through and books any tours and activities there. So that's like a fantastic program, and anyone can sign up for it. But yeah, so I mean, obviously here you want to take guests, and it sounds like a lot of these links lead back to the guidebook. And I think one thing for folks to realize is when they invest in a product like a Hostfully guidebook, is you're typically just sending it to that booker. And you want to make sure, since you've made this great investment, that you're getting in front of more people. And by collecting information through the Wi-Fi, it's going to give you that opportunity to put that guidebook in front of the non-booking guests, which again will increase conversion, reduce the number of questions you're getting, just because now everybody staying there is getting the information and you're not relying on that booker to share it with other people that they're staying with. Yep. And then one other feature, which is also new with StayFi, is actually sharing that homepage to guests prior to the stay. So we have basically a pre-arrival form that you can trigger through StayFi that gets sent through Hostfully to the booker through whatever channel they booked it with. And basically in this message, you link out and it will open this pre-arrival form. So it will look very similar to your splash page. And then once the guest fills this in or the booker fills it in, there's actually an intermediate step here where they can actually share this with the other guests that they're staying with. And then finally, they'll get placed on that homepage. So again, they'll have access to the guidebook as well as the ability to book all those upsells that Mike talked about. And this is just a new feature in StayFi that not only helps you collect some more data, it also gets those upsells in front of guests prior to the stay. And then finally, let's move over to email marketing, just because you're collecting this data from so many different places. What are you going to do with it? And I think interesting, and Mike, he can talk about it in a little bit. He's using an email marketing tool I've actually never heard of. So I'd love to hear kind of how he found that tool and you know, why they decided to go forward with it and what they're doing with it. And then obviously within StayFi, we have our own tool. But things to consider is first, you know, finding an email tool that works for you. And then figuring out kind of what are the goals. And I think Mike talked about some of the goals earlier, which was filling, let's say, last minute availability for Mardi Gras. And then I'm sure he has some other goals around other times of the year. So kind of like, what are the key points over the course of the year where you need that occupancy boost that your direct booking can provide? And then how much investment do you want to make? So what I always tell people is to first start with automated campaigns, especially if they're new to email marketing, just because it's better and worth more of your time to set up one email that gets sent to everybody when they subscribe, as opposed to a monthly newsletter, right? Which you definitely want to add later, but to start with, automated campaigns are the best way to go. And then finally, as your list grows, you can add in those newsletters. So just curious, Mike, kind of like what was the tool again that you used for email, and what kind of was the reason why you went in that direction?
Yes. So the tool is 24/7, 365. It works through Lead Connector, which is a little bit more popular, I believe. But I first learned about that directly from the founder, Jason Smorlek. I'm butchering his name probably. But as I had reached out to him about another product he offers, Identified AI, which basically is able to identify name, email address, and some other demographic info of about 50% of your website visitors. And so he just the way our conversation went, he kind of mentioned that, and he took me down the rabbit hole there. Because we were using MailChimp up until maybe like 6 months ago or so. The reason we chose to go with 24/7, 365 is it's basically like we were using RingCentral for our phone line, but we were able to consolidate that into 24/7, 365 as well. Even cheaper than RingCentral, right? So, you know, one, the value of it just does so many different things. We're even able to control our Google business profile from it as well. But very similar to MailChimp, you can set up your email campaigns, you can do a newsletter, all of that stuff. But it'll also If you open up an individual contact, of course, it'll show you the history of all the emails you sent back and forth and how their open rate, their click rate. But next to that, it also has the same for any SMSs, whether it was during their stay or afterwards or any marketing stuff we did that way. It's kind of all in one right there.
So it's give you that holistic guest view, and then I'm assuming you do some amount of. Do you actually do sales over the phone as well when it comes to booking? And you have that integrated view, or you're still guiding them back into the website?
Yeah. So we take a very small amount of like over the phone sales, but in 2025, as you can imagine, and as I'm sure most of our participants have experienced, people don't want to talk to you. That's why they book short term.
Yes.
They don't want to stand in line at the front desk and check in and all of that stuff. So yeah, most of the time it's that's why in those one of the screenshots you had on our site, you saw the little chat widget. That chat widget, it goes straight to text. So as soon as you put in your info in and put your message in, my team is getting that message and texting you right back to your phone. So they're kind of able to walk you through that process if needed. But again, of course, you can call the Book NOLA number 24/7, and a real person is going to answer and get that taken care of. But
That's awesome. I mean, I'm still surprised that we still work with some folks who actually take a lot of reservations over the phone, but definitely in more of those like traditional beach markets, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course, on your website, you've also invested a good amount in SEO to help you kind of grow organic traffic. I know that's a bit of like a longer term ROI strategy, so we'd love to learn more about kind of how you found someone to do that and kind of which type of content you find work really well in your market. And are you able to actually track bookings back to any of the content that you're putting out there?
Yeah, so to start, trial and error is kind of how I found these people. Thankfully, right now, I'm working with a content creator for the blogs who is specific for the vacation rental industry. So she has a lot of experience with that. But, the way we decide how to, what to write about or what content, of course, there's like you see right here, everything you need to know about Mardi Gras 2025. So we'll do ones for the big events like that. Of course, like we did one for Super Bowl that was just here earlier this month. Essence Fest, Jazz Fest, the big events. But we also dive really, really, really deep into our Google Search Console info to see kind of how we're ranking on the keywords and look at what keywords we would like to be ranking better for, but are kind of lagging behind, and seeing what articles we can kind of tie in there to take advantage of it. And that has worked out very well. That, and then we have a guy that we have him on retainer, specifically does website SEO. As you can see there, like 23 to 24, increase that website traffic by 260%. We don't do paid ads at all. But as you can see, like I'm willing to wager $5 that if you search vacation rentals New Orleans in Google right now, we're going to be one of the top 3 organic results. So when was it? And going back to your last question there, are we able to track the conversion from those blogs basically into direct bookings? We are, I'm sure, but we're not currently doing that. One thing we are tracking though is total website visitors divided by how many actual direct bookings we're getting, like on a monthly basis. So that's something we keep an eye on, so that we can go back and kind of tweak things if we're seeing a huge uptick in the number of people that are landing on our site, but we're not seeing a corresponding increase in the number of people who are booking there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's such a great point. Is the content also has to be kind of relevant to folks that are potentially searching for a rental, just because otherwise you can get a lot of traffic that isn't pretty high quality. And I think the really good point about the vacation rental New Orleans and the fact that you rank top 3 is that Google really likes local brands and favors them often over OTAs, like an OTA landing page like Airbnb New Orleans or Vrbo New Orleans. And so we see a lot of our market leading customers outrank those OTA websites for searches like this. So if you do have a good presence in your market, investing in SEO can have a huge return just because Google likes to favor the local brands over the big OTAs. I often think just because they know the OTAs will spend a lot of money on search advertising. So that's definitely a huge part of their budget. So yeah, and then obviously outside of just getting a better rate, which I think is really cool, just like having that widget on the website just to give that proof point. Obviously, you guys are providing some other services that go beyond like a typical Airbnb operator to build that guest loyalty. So just curious learning more about how that's evolved over time across these different touch points and kind of helping folks have a great stay.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that kind of started the very first time a guest said, "Hey, our Uber driver who just dropped us off at the place said this wasn't a great neighborhood." Um, and just like wanting to take control of that guest data, just wanting to take more control of that guest experience. I was fortunate enough that like my best buddy he owns a like black car service, so luxury transportation company. I was able to make a deal with him to kind of get some really good rates, higher than Uber, but for all of our guests, much cheaper than you get a black car service anywhere else in the country, right? And so that way, kind of having more control of the process. My buddy's drivers, one, it's an upsell, so we're making a couple dollars off of it. Two, my buddy's drivers are all like, "Oh, Book NOLA is so great. You're going to have a great time. This is a great location. This is a great neighborhood. I've dropped off so many guests to this house." Whatever it is, they knew their mission was, we're going to talk up Book NOLA, we're going to talk up the city, we're going to talk up the house and the neighborhood, because again, that guest experience is just so important, right? I mean, if the first thing that you hear when you're pulling up to the house is, "Oh man, is this really where you're staying? This is a terrible neighborhood." Come on, like as a host, like what can you even do about that? So that's kind of where it stemmed from, and then Bioter, of course, but we've got like the screenshot here that we have. I think it's like Captain Experiences. They're a national operator. They basically are like Uber for fishing charters. And so, we get a little kickback there, but again, and speaking with the owner, that's the most important thing for me when we set up these relationships, because we also have some relationship with like restaurants and other things, chefs that'll come in house and make a meal. They same thing, just like the car drivers, they're always going to talk up Book NOLA. Like that's part of the deal. I'm going to send you business. I'm going to talk up your chef skills, your fishing charters, your transportation services, whatever it is. But the relationship has to be reciprocal, right? And that I have found those are the guests that will come back and leave the longest, most detailed, most glowing reviews. And they're the ones that are going to run home and tell their friends and start planning their vacation back next year.
Yeah, man, that's so great. Especially, I love the little inception move with the driver just to start that brand impression even before the guest realizes what's going on. I mean, that's so awesome. Yeah, and I know we're pushing up against time, so I just want to, we're pretty much at the end, so which is fantastic. Just little case studies to close with. I know Mike's talked a little bit about his success, but you don't need to be a large property manager to have success with StayFi. We have folks here like Kaloa Kai, Anchor Point Vacation Rentals that are more in the 2 to 10 listings, and for them it's just how can we find those extra repeat guests that we're going to come back and stay with us again and again. And then we have folks like Cottage Days that have been doing direct bookings for years. Already were doing a ton when they joined with StayFi, and now they're actually for their peak season not even using OTAs anymore. So a whole range of experiences with StayFi depending on the size, because it really doesn't take maybe just 1 or 2 bookings a year to more than pay for the system, and you're going to definitely achieve that and a lot more. And then just as a special thank you, if you sign up for StayFi and use code Hostfully, you'll get 50% off your first 3 months. When you sign up for StayFi, you can sign up for the Wi-Fi tool. You can also sign up for the email marketing tool together or separately. So you can be like Mike, where you use our Wi-Fi tool and connect it with a third-party email tool, which is more than fine and go use the data there. But you can also sign up just for our email tool and then just leverage the data, for instance, that you're collecting through Hostfully to get started, and then maybe add Wi-Fi for more data collection in the future. So both are totally possible. And so go to stayfi.com, you can create an account, and you can also set up a demo with our team if you're interested. Now, I know we're at 4, but Frank, should we just try to take a few questions?
Yeah, and if anyone can hang for the next couple of minutes, I think we answered a lot in the chat. The one that did go unanswered is from Carol, and if you really have ever worried about Airbnb or OTA backlash, which I'm sure you have, due to the negative marketing for them, such as the look how much you are saving over Airbnb pricing pop-up. I'm sure this is something that you encounter all the time.
I love this question. Yes, I worry about it. That's exactly why I have a direct booking website and use StayFi. 100%. Because even if I wasn't doing this, Airbnb, as I'm sure you guys have heard many horror stories, can kick you off at any point for almost any reason and give you almost no information. So with or without me doing this, there's that risk. But this allows me to take that control back and kind of limit that fear.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, most property management companies have been doing vacation rentals for years that list on Airbnb and Vrbo. They've been doing direct bookings even before those platforms existed. So it's always been around in this industry. I know for folks that maybe entered into the space because of Airbnb, maybe, obviously as that entry point, maybe you learn about direct bookings later, but just, some context, it's always been part of this industry and always will be. And when you look around at related hospitality industries like hotels, hotels are running their own loyalty programs, are pushing direct bookings, right? And they have that similar tension with OTAs where we all need OTAs to fill our calendars, but the preference is always to drive guests to book directly. And that's what those brands are continually doing, right? So that tension is going to exist, in any hospitality industry and is totally normal.
Yeah, for sure. I think we answered. Oh, there's one more question. I'm an intern at the company who rents a lot of accommodations on Airbnb, Booking.com, but my task is to get them more direct bookings. What do you recommend I should start with or do to get that company more direct bookings?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the lowest hanging fruit and the reason why we started StayFi is to market to guests that have already stayed and loved the accommodation, right? It's going to be a lot harder to convince somebody who's never heard of Book NOLA or stayed at Book NOLA to go off of Google and book a listing there. And obviously Mike's made a lot of progress to making that happen. But especially starting out, the easiest folks to convince to book again are going to be people that stayed with you, especially if you have a very clear value proposition, which for most operators is going to be, it's less expensive because we don't have the booking.com fee, right? So whatever guest data that you can collect from past stays, that's where I would start. So building out an email marketing campaign to write all those folks every month is going to be the lowest hanging fruit, just because the bar is a lot lower to convince that person to book again if they've loved staying with you in the past.
Yep. Good way to end it. Nice little tidbit, a little walk away. Now I know, oh wait, is there another one? Oh no, Marcos just answered that one. All right. Yeah, I mean, that was just fantastic. I always love having you both on these things. We really have so many great takeaways from this webinar. But with Arthur, Troy, Michael, Marcos, thank you for taking the time to speak with us and sharing your vast knowledge of the industry. It really is truly appreciated. Michael, your loyalty, Arthur and Troy, great working with you two. And then for the audience, like for those that are listening, who are just overwhelmed with the wealth of information that you just received, don't fret. You're going to be receiving a webinar, a link to a recorded version of this webinar. So I hope you all did learn something new today, and you'll be using it to scale and generate more revenue and get more bookings and increase your marketing strategies. So again, gentlemen, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. And I hope to see you all again soon.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Have a great remainder to your week, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.